Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our morning coffee time. I believe today is Thursday, July the 30th. So, how is everyone's morning? I was trying to keep one eye on the chat while I was troubleshooting and setting up. So, I see a question or so already. And I see, Scott, you're headed for Abaigiri. That's wonderful. I hope you have a good stay down there. So, I was just talking with Lumpur Pasano and Ajahn Yanako yesterday, and sounds like things are well there. We've just had another new ordination, a new Anagarika, 8-precept Anagarika has joined the community. So I might remind people that Ajahn Punadamo is in need of a steward, or there's an opening for a steward position out at Arrow River Forest Monastery starting sometime, I think, this fall. So I suppose it's safest if you're a Canadian citizen or have the appropriate visa status for such things. But if you're interested at all, I would suggest contacting him and seeing what it is that they need or what the opportunity is. It can be a wonderful opportunity being a steward in a monastery for a period of time. So let's see. I see, before we get any further afield into this, I see reports that I'm fuzzy, and I see signs that things look and sound good. So okay, well, thanks, Eleanor and Jana and Carolyn and Neil. Okay, so I'm at least clear and sounding good on more than one continent. I think that's good enough. So a question early on from Michelle. Dear Ajahn, what to write a dying friend or his wife in his last days at home? That's a difficult one for me. I never know even what to write on somebody's birthday card. Recently, before Ajahn Krunadamo left Abaigiri, there was an effort to put together a nice little book of appreciation for everything he's offered the community over the years, because he was changing roles and stepping back, and they wrote me to write something, and I just threw my hands up in the air and said, I never know what to write in these situations. So I might not be the best person. And while I think monastics are amazing people, oftentimes we're not capable of all things. So I guess that's okay. My general advice, though, in relating to a friend, an intimate, or a loved one who is facing their final days and is engaged in what what becomes clearly the final days of their life is really to focus in and intensify one's relationship of expressing, well, offering comfort where one can, of course, but, also conveying the love and the gratitude that one sincerely feels for that person. Uh, there can be a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear facing one's death, and a lot of recasting the stories of one's life, and to be able to share. I mean, and it's most wonderful. This can happen in person, of course. One of the great tragedies of the pandemic we have now is people can't necessarily be with their loved ones at the time of death. But just to be with somebody and or communicate in whatever way you can, uh, the love, the gratitude, the appreciation, um, that which you respect in the person, can be, I think, a wonderful way to be in a relationship with somebody that is dying. So, and it might just help put their mind at ease, and also keep them focused on um, things that they might also feel good about, and generate a sense of contentment. I remember spending time with my father when he was dying from cancer, and at times he would start to sort of lapse into regret over how things had played out in his life, and not so much over wrongdoings, but just lost opportunities, or thinking about what could have been in his life. And when I was with him and those moments would come up, I mean, I would lovingly and gently just try to encourage him to relax the pull to kind of go there, and then just affirm what I saw in him and in the relationship we had, that was fully satisfying and good, and affirm his goodness, and and move towards contentment and letting go. It was what it was, and there was some profound goodness there. So I think that I think those are comforting uh, ways to sort of relate to somebody who's in that position. And I see you have a follow-up here. If I can skip ahead. Practice my chat following skills. Somehow I can't find it. Thought of Ajahn Chah's talk to a dying lady. Maybe too difficult? Yeah, that so I think you're probably referring to this. There's a beautiful talk that Ajahn Chah gave, and the English translation of it is called Our Real Home. And it's full of beautiful advice, both to the lady who was in her death process, as well as to the family. Um, and I would urge caution there. Like a lot of times, where we may get into trouble in being with people in their death and dying processes, when our own hopes and desires and aspirations, even for them, maybe hijack the situation. So we're wanting them to have a beautiful death, or wanting them to think of their death, or even experience death in a particular way. And well, there is some beauty and nobility in wanting the best for somebody, especially wanting them to die in the best way or in a peaceful way. The desire and the tanha, or sometimes even just being attached to those ideas or those outcomes, can cause some friction or some harm, even, or frustration. So, like, we really need to practice letting go ourselves, and be very attentive to sort of the person and where they're at and what they're capable of, and opportunities to kind of to give and be with them, rather than trying to take control of the situation. And I see Sumana's comment here, which is nice. Like, she's sharing when her experience when her husband was at the end of his life. Love was important, and he liked to be reminded of the good others saw in him. Stories were appreciated. So, yeah, you want to remind people. I mean, we should be reminding ourselves all the time of these things, and reminding the people that we love and that we're in relationship to all the time of these things. We shouldn't wait until they die. But as we move into those moments, of course, we want to be extra heedful and skillful. So, and well, there's a general encouragement to let go of the past. The Buddha actually does recommend recollecting on the goodness one has done. So, and also celebrating the goodness of others. So, a few thoughts there on relationship, especially in such a challenging chapter of this experience of living and dying. What is the main cause for monks to disrobe? I'm confused, because it seems that life as a monk would help us feel better, or at least accept life as it is more easily. Well, being a monastic it's challenging. I mean, it's and people bring their karma to it, so there's no uniform experience that people have. You're shifting into a different kind of mode of being, with various supports and relationships and community structures, and you have the training to dedicate yourself to, and that provides some challenges and that provides some support, but you still have all your karma and your karmic habits to kind of deal with. So, and one way one might answer that question is people's karma proves to be difficult or incompatible with kind of happily living on sort of as a monastic member of the Sangha. So I've had friends disrobe because of profound health challenges and the asceticism of the life becomes a bit difficult to deal with certain health conditions. But, also people can be overtaken by some compulsion or delusion and disrobe for those reasons. People can become infatuated with a different way of life or returning to the householder life and pursuing relationship. So those can be causes. I mean, in short, one feels dissatisfied and they leave for reasons of dissatisfaction, either in their self and their ability to happily sort of live and go forward as monastic. So, sometimes they lose faith in Buddha Dhamma, but more often it's like they lose faith in themselves and that living on as a monastic and practicing as a monastic is really going to be suitable for them. So, and in some sense, there's no shame or stigma to it. People would ordain and leave the robes and sometimes even come back into monastic community later in life or if things change. So, and the Buddha allowed for that to a certain extent. I think there is some sort of rule that you can't ordain more than 7 times or something. So you can't be coming and going and coming and going. But there were monastics in the time of the Buddha that ordained and then became dissatisfied, left, and then later had a change of heart and came back and joined the community. So I think most find it sufficiently challenging. So, I mean, there is a reason there are not many monks or nuns in the world in almost any religious orders. So, and I understand the challenges, having lived as a monk now for 26 or 7 years in the monastery. And it surprises me on one level that more people don't choose monastic life, but it is a challenge. And back to the theme of death and dying, Karen has something here that you probably all saw long ago, but I'm just seeing now. Ajahn Tanisro told me to tell my mother that she would be okay, and we would be okay when asked what to say as she is dying. Yeah, that can be comforting. Good morning, Carrie. What's an important reading for a new practitioner of Buddhism? Anything that is read every day? Well, it is good to have a practice of reading. So, on a regular basis, a little Dhamma input every day. There's a couple books that I like to sort of direct people to. I mean, one for a very broad and comprehensive sense of what the Buddha taught is a compendium by Bhikkhu Bodhi called In the Words of the Buddha. And what's nice about it is he has an organizational structure to kind of take you through a lot of the many different aspects that the Buddha taught on. and he gives some very nice commentary, and then selects suttas or excerpts from suttas. So, he's dealing with primary sources, and then those are included in the book as well. So, there's commentary about those things, but also one can kind of read those in context. And I believe that's a Wisdom Publications book from the American monk Bhikkhu Bodhi, In the Words of the Buddha. So I think that's a kind of wonderful overview for people of the breadth of the teaching. So maybe try their carry. See how that works. Morning, Adil, or good evening, your time. What if a novice monk gets attached to his teacher? I reckon this must happen pretty often on monastic communities. Depends what you mean by attached, Adil. But several of the Western monks tell stories of Ajahn Chah sending them off, and in their sense, they thought Ajahn Chah was doing that to kind of break some over-reliance on him. He could be terrifically charismatic and inspiring and wise, and that can create a kind of faith high, or maybe even a dependence, like always looking to the teacher for answers, for advice, for inspiration. And I remember a few instances where he apparently just would send monks off to someplace uninspiring, or just to give them a chance to develop some inner strength and reliance on developing those qualities of mind in themselves, like learning how to inspire themselves, learning how to develop their practice and develop their own wisdom and insight instead of always looking to the teacher, develop their own skillful means to steer their practice and put forth effort in a skillful way. You can't always be relying on a teacher to solve all your problems. How can one differentiate between genuine and non-genuine monks? Well, I mean, there's several things. I mean, first off, one should have at least a basic understanding, I would think, of the Vinaya, the Buddhist monastic code, and look for monks that understand and follow that. So, actually, I think maybe the shortest form is to look into the teaching of the Ovada Patimokkha by the Buddha. That's a very brief summation. And there's some interesting things in there. In fact, just a few days ago, I was watching a little documentary about a monk, and I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but somebody who clearly seems to be advocating harm towards other beings. And in the Ovada Patimokkha, the Buddha sort of says, one who would harm another is not a samana. So, someone who is devoted to ahimsa is a clear mark of the true samana, or the seeker of peace, the true monk, as you might say, or the true monastic. But some basic understanding of the virtue that should be practiced by a monastic is good, and then also some understanding of the core tenets of Buddhism as taught in the Pali Canon. And then it just takes time to know one. And the Buddha, even in his own lifetime, encouraged people to be constantly putting their faith in the Dhamma and comparing the speech, the teachings, the practice of others with what it is that he actually taught. And, in the suttas, there's even, various interludes where people are trying to discern, is this accord with the teaching of the Buddha or not? Like monks are debating or discussing on their own a particular view or a particular teaching that they might have heard. And sometimes if they can't come to some agreement or understanding of that, they go and they take it to the Buddha, and he'll clarify it. And but the Buddha also says you need to really know somebody. You need to spend time with them, and it takes time to see people, to know someone's true qualities. So you don't want to be too quick to judge. I mean, if there's obvious speech and behavior that contravenes or is not in alignment with the monastic discipline or the teachings of the Buddha, in unambiguous ways, then I think you're pretty safe to ignore them or stay away. But when it comes to less ambiguous kind of qualities of their sincerity, their dedication to the teachings, the fidelity to the teachings, then it just takes time. Ruanthi. What the Buddha Taught by Wapola Rahula is a great book. It gives a well-rounded idea. I've read it many times and still find it interesting to read again. Yes, this is a popular favorite. It was actually the first book that kind of came to mind. But I think for many readers, Bhikkhu Bodhi's In the Buddha's Words gives maybe a nicer presentation, although I'm still quite a fan of what the Buddha taught. I mean, it's a great starting point for people. It was one of the first 10 books on Theravada Buddhism I read, and I read it a time or two. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it at that for today, friends. I wish you all well, and appreciate the opportunity to give a little bit of my time and answer some questions and offer some encouragement to y'all. So have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow on the morning coffee time. Be well.